Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor.
Hey guys, Derek with Tap and Turn Gaming, and I'm here today with a deck tech for one of our Ravnica Guild battles for supremacy. So today's guild is going to be the Rakdos Cult, and they are going to be led by Rakdos Lord of Riots. So this guild is all about being sadistic and maniacal and twisted and crazy, because Rakdos gets bored easy, and this is what he likes. He likes murder, death, all of those crazy things, and that's really what his cult members try to do. They really try to please Rakdos by just committing murder and mayhem and doing all these crazy sadistic things. So that's what this guild is all about. It's about being aggressive. It's about not having to make a lot of decisions. You get your creatures and you attack with them. It's not about sitting there and thinking about what you're going to do next. You're going to turn big guys sideways and go in for damage. So yeah, that's what we got. We've got the Rakdos Cult, led by Rakdos Lord of Riots, and it's just an aggressive all-in style deck, so check it out. Hey guys, Derek with Tap and Turn Gaming, and I'm here today with another deck tech for one of our Ravnica Battle for Supremacy decks. Today's deck is the Cult of Rakdos, led by none other than Rakdos Lord of Riots. Rakdos is a really, really cool general if you like an aggressive style of play. And that's what this deck is. It's all about being aggressive, not having to make a lot of decisions, and just coming out hard and fast. So what he does is he's a 4-cost 6/6 with flying and trample, so he's got a lot of value on him. But you can't cast him unless an opponent has lost life this turn, which can be sometimes hard to do. Excuse me. But as long as you have a way to damage the opponent, he's going to come out, and then he's going to start hitting hard and fast. But his biggest ability is creature spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast for each point of life that each opponent has lost. That's a really, really cool ability. If one opponent has lost 5, one opponent has lost 6, then basically your creature spells cost 11 less to cast. And you know, this deck tries to take full advantage of that and start casting big mean creatures very quickly. So now I'm going to go over the deck. We're going to start with the stipulation cards. As you know, every one of our guild decks has these stipulation cards. So first one is the Rix Maadi Guildmage. 2-cost 2/2 human shaman. It has pay a red and a black. Target blocking creature gets -1/-1, so a nice combat trick. And pay a red and a black. Target player who lost life this turn loses another 1 life. That ability I'm not super stoked about. I mean, it's almost like having another version of Extort if you were playing Orzhov. It's pretty cool, but I really like the combat trick. You know, I block with like a 5/5 and I attack with a 5/5 and they block with say a 6/6. I invest 4 mana in. Now they're blocking creatures of 4/4 and it dies to my 5/5. It's pretty cool. Next one we have here is Rakdos Guildmage. 2-cost 2/2 zombie shaman. I can pay 4 and discard a card. Target creature gets -2/-2. That for me is kind of it's nice in a pinch, but it's kind of Or I can pay 4 and put a 2/1 red goblin creature token with haste onto the battlefield and remove it from the game at end of turn. That's one I'll usually use, and I usually use it as a combat trick just to get a blocker out. That's for the most part what it is, and that's how I use it. Then we have the other legends I have to play. First one is Lyzolda the Blood Witch. She's a 3-cost 3/1. I can pay 2 and sacrifice a creature. Lyzolda the Blood Witch deals 2 damage to target creature or player if the sacrificed creature was red. And I draw a card if the sacrificed creature was black. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. So I pay 2 mana, I sacrifice a creature. If it was red, I can shock something. If it was black, I draw a card. Since the deck is red-black, I'm either going to have red or black creatures dying. And because I can use it instant speed, if I attack with a guy and he gets blocked and he's going to die, I'll just pay the 2, sacrifice him, and be able to use the 2 abilities. And it brings some value to the table. It's pretty good. And then we have Exava the Rakdos Blood Witch. She's the other Blood Witch. We have Lyzolda the Blood Witch and Exava the Blood Witch. She's a 4-cost 3/3 with first strike and haste, so very, very nice. And she has Unleash, which was the new Rakdos keyword. Unleash, what that does is I can have it come into play with a +1/+1 counter, and now it can't block. But what she does is each other creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has haste. So having her down really enables you to benefit from having that unleash mechanic go out, and you can really just unleash and go crazy and just start casting your guys for, you know, a hasty purpose. And then we have Rakdos the Defiler, the original Rakdos, the original Big Daddy Rakdos. 6 cost, 7/6, so he's got some power, flying and trample, so he's definitely got some power and evasion behind him. What's nice about him is that when he connects with the opponent, when he attacks and hits them, they have to sacrifice half of their non-demon permanents. What's bad about him is that when he just turns sideways to attack, I have to do the same thing. So if he's not going to hit, you don't attack with him. Because if you turn him sideways to attack, you sacrifice half your non-demon permanents, and then he doesn't hit, you just lost half your permanents, and now your opponent's probably going to just beat your face. But if you can get around that ability, he is really, really, really good. And I think he's great. Then we have the 3 lands that I had to run, the Blood Crypt, the Carnarium, and the Guildgate. And then we have the Signet, the Cluestone to draw a card, and the Key Rune, which animated becomes a 3/1 black and red devil artifact creature token with first strike. I've used that as a combat trick just to have that little first strike and take out a guy. Really, really nice. So that wraps up the stipulation cards. So let's go on to the actual deck itself, and I'm going to break it down by categories. First category I'll go over is the tutors. Pretty basic package here. Demonic Tutor, Beseech the Queen, Diabolic Tutor, and Diabolic Revolution. You know, it's a black deck, so I'm going to take advantage of the tutors. Why wouldn't I? Demonic and Diabolic are very well known for what they do. Beseech the Queen, 3 mana if it's all black, or I have to pay the colorless if it's not black, which is sort of a downfall. And I can only search for cards that are equal to the number of lands I control, so it's whatever. But I'm usually searching for particular cards that I needed. I'm only casting that if I know what I want, not just because I'm guessing. And then Diabolic Revolution. Because I can use Rakdos' ability to play my cards for cheaper, I can invest more mana into this to be able to play more creatures. So if I've swung at Rakdos and he hits for 6, all my creatures cost 6 less, I could play my Diabolic Revolution, pay 3 mana into it so I can search for 3 creatures if I wanted to. If I search for 3 6-cost colorless creatures, I can just put them all into play for free. And that's usually what I'm doing, is I'm usually cashing this when I can abuse it with Rakdos' damage already on the board per se. And that's all my tutors. Next up, I'm going to go with my sweeper package. Not a huge amount of sweepers because this deck is all about just being kind of all in. But we have Life's Finale, In Garrick's Wake, and Blasphemous Act. That's, you know, for me, they kind of are good sweepers, but they also sort of fit the theme of being aggressive and mean just by their names. You know, this is the Cult of Rakdos, so Blasphemous Act kind of makes sense. And In Garrick's Wake, because he's a creature and he's just going through and he has this wake of destruction behind him, so the name sort of makes sense for me. And then Life's Finale, you know, they're a cult, they're sacrificing things, so Life's Finale sort of fit. So for me, it wasn't just about having the sweepers, but they also had to sort of fit the theme, and I think they did that pretty well. Up next, we have my artifacts. Not very many. We have Nim Deathmantle. You've seen this on a lot of my deck techs. Like I said before, I just have this in there for the res. The 2 cost to play it, and I'll just leave it there. One of my creatures dies, I'll pay that 4 just to res it. And that's really the only reason it's in there. Ashnod's Altar is something you'll see in a lot of my decks also, because I like the free sacrifice outlet to be able to get the 2 mana. Really, really nice. And then we have Argentum Armor. This is another one of those cards that you see in a lot of my decks because it gives you access to be able to destroy permanents that you couldn't normally destroy. If I play this for 6 mana 1 turn, next turn I attack with Rakdos, and he hits for 6 damage, now I can reduce my cost of my creatures by 6, so I could play a creature for free almost, and then equip him with this, and it's almost like I just cast a creature. And it's really nice. Go over my enchantments. I run Oversold Cemetery. You know, when you have 4 creatures in the graveyard, being able to take back 1 for free is really helpful. Because of the sort of all-in strategy of the deck, a lot of my creatures are going to die, and this will help get around that all my creatures are dying kind of thing. Then we have Grave Pact. Everybody knows what Grave Pact does. Enchantment, when it's on the board, when I lose a guy, everybody has to lose a guy. And then I also run Dictate of Erebos. Same exact thing for 1 more mana with Flash. When I lose a guy, everybody has to lose a guy. The value that those bring alone is awesome. Because you figure, if you take a look at Grave Pact, and what I mean by value, is if you take a look at Grave Pact, a lot of black kill spells cost 3 mana anyways. So if I play this for 4, if I lose one creature and both of my opponents have to lose one creature, or all 3 of my opponents have to lose one creature, I've really got the mana cost back from it per se. And that's what I mean when I say value. You know, it's different people accumulate value differently, and that's how I see it. Next up we have the Planeswalkers. I run Liliana of the Dark Realms, mostly because of the fact that she can tutor for a land, so I can always hit my land drops. Black is not a color that necessarily has a lot of access to Excel, so being able to have those land drops repeatedly is super, super helpful. Being able to kill creatures is nice too, and her ultimate is awesome, but unless I'm going to get to her ultimate, I'm going to just keep +1ing to get the land, +1ing to get the land, +1ing to get the land, until I get to her ultimate, and then I will activate it, but not if she's going to die. So her ultimate costs 6, she has 3 loyalty. I'm not going to just get her up to 6 and then use it. I'm going to get her up to 7 and then use it, so I still have her on the board to potentially get more lands out of her. Then we have Koth of the Hammer. 4 cost, comes in with 3 loyalty also. I use him for his Excel because he lets me untap a mountain. It does become a creature. I don't necessarily worry about the creature. What I usually just worry about is the fact that I can untap my mountain and use it for something else. So, you know, for my turn per se, I could +1 Liliana, get a land, play it, and then I could tap all my lands for something, then use his ability to untap the mountain to have that 1 extra mana. It's really come in handy a lot. Or I can add 1 red to my mana pool for each mountain I control. So both of his 2 abilities just provide me with Excel that I need to stay 1 step ahead of my opponent on the aggression meter. And then I will use his emblem when I can get to it. You get an emblem with mountains you control, have tapped to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. Really, really nice in a deck like this where I'm trying to be aggressive, because late game I can start turning my 6, 7, 8 mountains into all just individual pings, and that can really, really help win a game. And then Chandra the Firebrand. She's a 4 cost, 3 loyalty. So all my Planeswalkers cost 4 and have 3 loyalty. Didn't actually realize that till right now. But what she's mainly in here for is her +1. She deals 1 damage to a player. That will be that 1 damage that can allow me to cast Rakdos, and I'll take it every single time. Or her -2. The next instant or sorcery spell I cast this turn is copied, and I can choose new targets. It's nice to be able to cast a tutor and use it twice, or some of my other spells that I'm going to go over in a minute to be able to use those twice. And then her ultimate, Chandra the Firebrand, does 6 damage to each of up to 6 target creatures and/or players. Really, really awesome. I mean, all of her modes are pretty good, but she's mostly in there for her damage to a player. That finishes up my Planeswalkers. This right here is sort of my coup de grace for spells, I guess you could say. I use these to almost usually win a game. Basically, these are spells that all give me extra combat phases. So we have Relentless Assault, 4 cost, untap all creatures that attack this turn. You get an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. Savage Beating, 5 cost, can only cast it during combat. Choose 1. Creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn, or untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. You can see the theme going on with these. World at War, 5 cost. After this first post-combat main phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. At the beginning of the combat, untap all creatures that attack this turn. And this one has Rebound. And then we have Fury of the Horde. 7 cost. I can cast it for free if I pitch 2 red cards from my hand. And it does untap all creatures that attack this turn. After this main phase, an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. So these more or less all do the same thing. Additional combat phase, except Savage Beating can give them double strike. What the point of this is that if I have an opening, and if I have a creature that can hit for 6 damage, and I cast one of these, especially if I cast Savage Beating, that 6 damage is all of a sudden going to turn into 24 damage, and that can be huge. I've used it actually to one-shot someone with my general. They didn't have a flyer. I attack at my general. I cast and entwine Savage Beating, so he hit for 6 double strike, untapped, and hit for 6 double strike again, and they were dead, just like that. It can be as quick as that. And that's how this deck is really supposed to roll, is just coming out aggressively and mean. So now we're going to go take a look at the lands real quick. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 mountains. 10 swamps. Then for my dual lands, I run Graven Cans for filter, Akum Refuge for dual and to gain life, Lava Claw Reaches because I can animate it and it's a dual, Molten Slag Heap for the storage to sort of build up that mana when I have nothing else to do, Auntie's Hovel because it's a dual, Black Cleave Cliffs because it's a dual, Sulphur Springs because it's a dual, Dragon Skull Summit's a dual, Bloodfell Clays for the dual and the gain life. Then I run Temple of the False God, sort of because I felt like I had to. Being that this is the Cult of Rakdos, I had to run Temple of the False God, so I did. Then I run Keep for one of my tech lands to put out tokens, Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds. Some more of my more techie lands that I use for their abilities is Shizo Death Storehouse. I have a few legends in the deck. Besides having all the Rakdos legends, I have a few other legends in the deck itself, and being able to give them fear can just be enough to push through. I give them fear, and then I cast one of my dual combat phases. They're going to take a lot of damage. Bajuka Bog for the exile. Shinka the Blood-Soaked Keep, because I can give a legendary creature first strike. So I think I have like 7 or 8 legends. So being able to give any one of them first strike can mean the difference between me losing a guy and my opponent losing a guy, and I'll take that. And then Valakut because, you know, I can get some mountains going and do a little bit of damage. I mean, even if I only have my 5 mountains down and then I only can do, you know, maybe 12 damage, I'll still take it. Any kind of free damage, I'll take every time. And then the last thing we have up is really what this deck is all about, is the creatures and about being aggressive. So we'll take a look at that. I run Dragonmaster Outcast. He's a 1-cost 1/1. And as long as I have 5 lands at the beginning of my upkeep, he gives me a free dragon. A free 4/4 flying dragon, I believe it is. Or it's a 5/5. I'll have to look it up to find out, but I think it's a 4/4 flying dragon. Then we run Tymaret the Murder King. 2-cost 2/2. I can sacrifice another creature and he deals 2 damage to target player. Or I can sacrifice a creature to return him from my graveyard to my hand. I mostly use him for the first ability, sacrificing another creature to shock something. To, you know, help. I can shock the player, and just that lets me cast Rakdos. Really nice. Then we run Erebos, God of the Dead. He's a 4-cost 5/7 who's indestructible. Once I get to 5 black mana symbols, he is a creature. My opponents can't gain life, and I can draw cards for life and mana. Take that every time. Bloodline Keeper. He's mostly in there to be able to spit out the tokens as blockers. You know, I really like to have the ability to, if I need to, at instant speed, make a blocker. And even if I don't need the blocker, at end of turn, I'll still make the token, and that can help me just push through some extra damage. Fanatic of Mogis. He's a 4-cost 4/2. When he comes into play, he deals damage to each opponent equal to my devotion to red. The fact that it's each opponent is really, really nice. I've cast him and had 7 mana symbols down, and he's done 7 damage to each opponent. That lets me reduce the mana cost of my creatures by 14 if I have down Rakdos. Really, really cool. Then we have Perforos, God of the Forge. He's really nice when I can start spitting out creatures because he does 2 damage to each opponent when I do. So it's something like a Bloodline Keeper that I can tap to make tokens, or my Rakdos Guildmage that I can use to make tokens. Being able to make those tokens and just being able to shock an opponent is really, really nice. Or each opponent, rather. Hellrider is another one of the enablers that helps me get out Rakdos pretty quick. He's a 4-cost 3/3 with haste, really nice. But whenever a creature you control attacks, Hellrider deals 1 damage to the defending player. So I'll play Hellrider. If I have the opening, I'll attack. If I don't, I won't. And then next turn, I'll swing with a guy I don't need just to deal that 1 damage, just to enable me to cast Rakdos. Then we have Mogis, God of Slaughter. He's a 4-cost 7/5, who isn't a creature until I have 7 devotion. But at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Mogis deals 2 damage to that player unless he or she sacrifices a creature. So they're either losing a creature or taking 2 damage. I'll take that. Just being able to limit their resources is a huge deal to me. Olivia Voldaren. She's really, really nice, even though she has weird art. But that's a whole nother story. But she's a 4-cost 3/3 flyer, so the flying is nice. I can pay 2 mana, and she deals 1 damage to target creature. That creature becomes a vampire in addition to its other types, and I put a +1/+1 counter on her. And then I can pay 5 to gain control of target vampire for as long as I control her. So being able to start stealing creatures is pretty huge, or I can just kill some creatures too. But whenever I ping a creature, she gets a +1/+1 counter. I've had her up to 7 or 8 sometimes. Then attack and give her a double strike with my Savage Beating and Entwine It. So she's hitting for 8 and 8 and 8 and 8. which is 32, so it almost one-shots an opponent, just out of nowhere. Grey Merchant of Asphodel, everybody knows what he does. 5 cost, 2/4. When he comes into play, each opponent loses X life, and I gain X life, where X is my devotion to black. Pretty basic, pretty awesome. Drana Calastria Bloodchief, 5 cost, 4/4 flyer. She can kill creatures and pump herself, and that's more or less why she's in there. I've used her to kill their only flyer and to give her a plus like 4 or 5, so she's hitting for 8 or 9, and do the same thing. Attack, savage beating it, hitting for almost their entire life just out of nowhere. Falkenrath Marauders. These guys, I really think that they're underrated. They are a 5 cost 2/2 with flying and haste. And whenever Falkenrath Marauders deals combat damage to a player, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So what's really cool about them is they're a 5 cost 2/2. When I attack with them, they become a 4/4. Next turn, they become a 6/6, so on and so forth. Really, really cool. Lightning Reaver. This guy, I think, is really cool. 6 cost, 3/3 with fear and haste. So he can get through pretty effectively. Unless I'm playing black, he's going to get through every single turn. And whenever Lightning Reaver deals combat damage to a player, put a charge counter on it. At the end of my turn, Lightning Reaver deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on him. So I attack, he gets a charge counter. Attack, he gets a charge counter. Attack, he gets a charge counter. That means he's hit 3 times for 9. And at the end of my turn, they're taking 9 damage. Oh, sorry, 3 damage for his 3 charge counters. It can add up pretty quick. Then we have Demigod of Revenge. He doesn't benefit at all from Rakdos because he has all colored mana symbols. He is 5/4. I have him in there because he's a 5/4 flying with haste. I'll probably replace him with something once I find a better swap for him, or if anybody has a suggestion. But I just like that he's also a demigod, so it sort of fits my sort of theme, if you will. Underworld Cerberus. This guy I really like. I think he's also underrated. 5 cost, 6/6. He can't be blocked by 3 or more creatures, so he's usually getting through. If I can burn off one of their... If they have 3 creatures and I kill one, he hits uncontested. No problem. He also can't be the target of spells or abilities. Cards and graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities. So, as long as he's out, my opponents can't res their creatures because they can't target them. And when he dies, exile him, and each other player returns all creature cards from their graveyard to their hand. So that's a downfall he has, but I'll put him in solely because he can hit for that 6 damage, almost uncontested, almost every turn. Harvester of Souls. Because of the aggressive nature of this deck, creatures are going to die on both my side and the opponent's side, so he really allows me to benefit from that. Whereas a 6 cost 5/5 with Death Touch, and whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. So I'm going to draw a lot of cards because of him, and that's really awesome. Inferno Titan, he's awesome for this deck. He's a 6 cost 6/6. He can pump, and when he comes in, I deal 3 damage, divided any way I choose, and when he attacks, I do that same 3 damage. Divided any way that I choose. He's also another enabler for getting Rakdos out. He's also just awesome, so he's in here. Soul of Shandalar. I love this card. I think it's super underrated. 6 cost 6/6 with first strike. So in combat, he's really just nasty. A 6/6 with first strike is just nasty. But what I really like is that I can pay 5, and he deals 3 damage to target player and 3 damage to up to 1 target creature that player controls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack with him. I'm going to pay the 5. Well, actually, I'm going to attack with him and see if they block. If they block with something that he'll die to, or something that he will kill, it's cool. If they block with something that's like a 7/7 or an 8/8, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use his ability, shock them for 3. Lightning bolt them for 3 per se. Hit the creature for 3, so now it's already taken 3 damage. Then he first strikes for 6. You can really use him for some cool combat tricks, and that's what I love about him. Hellkite Charger. He's a 6 cost 5/5 flying and haste, and when he attacks, I can pay 7. And if I do, untap all attacking creatures after this, and there's an additional combat phase. And if I have 7 mana down, I can do it. If I have 14 mana down, I can do it twice. And I've won games off the back of this creature alone. Chaos Imp. 6 cost 6/5 with flying and unleash. And Chaos Imps has trample as long as it has a +1/+1 counter on it. So when I cast him for 6, if I unleash him, he becomes a flying, trampling 7/6. That's really not bad. Steel Hellkite, he's one of the creatures that if Rakdos hits for 6 damage, I can cast him for free. That's really, really great value. And then also, he can destroy permanents. That's why he's in here. Because he's a flyer, he's colorless, so he can be cast for free. He can destroy permanents, he can pump. He has really everything I need for an aggressive deck. I have another 6-cost 6/6. This one has Death Touch and Lifelink. I can cast him for free when Rakdos hits, so he's great. And plus, when he dies, I get a lifelinking and a death touching token. So, you know, there's a reason why Wurmcoil Engine goes for like $20 now. And mine's foil, so it probably goes for a little more. Then we have Deathbringer Thoctar, 6-cost, 3/3. Whenever another creature is put into the graveyard from play, I put a +1/+1 counter on him. And I can remove a +1/+1 counter from him to deal 1 damage to our creature player. He's mostly in here because I can ping a player and be able to cast Rakdos. But also because he can just start taking dudes out. You know, once a lot of tokens have died in a game, which was pretty common, and he has 7 or 8 counters on him, I can just start taking guys out. Carnival Hellsteed. Well, another thing I'll say about Deathbringer Thoctar, he alone can kill every single 1/1 on the board at any time. Because once your creature dies and he has that 1/1 counter, I'm going to remove the counter to deal 1 damage to a 1/1. It's going to die so he gets another counter. So, against an army of tokens, he can instantly chain gun all of them down. Then we have Carnival Hellsteed, 6-cost 5/4 with First Strike and Haste, and Unleash. You know, pretty basic. That's what he does. I'm going to cast him. I'm going to unleash him. He's going to be a First Striking, Hasting, 6/5. Pretty cool. Sepulchral Primordial, 7-cost 5/4 with Intimidate, so he has some evasion to get through. But when he comes in, I can res 1 creature from each opponent's graveyard. That's awesome. What's more fun is when they have a Sepulchral Primordial in their graveyard. So what I've done is I've cast him, resed a creature from one opponent, and a Sepulchral Primordial from another opponent. And off that Sepulchral Primordial coming in, I've resed 2 more creatures. It's just good fun. Rune-Scarred Demon, 7-cost 6/6 with flying and Demonic Tutor on a stick. Sheoldra, the Whispering One. She's awesome for this deck as she can keep providing me the beats to be aggressive while limiting their resources. 7-cost 6/6 with Swamp Walk, and she has Swamp Walk. At the beginning of my upkeep, I can res a creature, and at the beginning of my opponent's upkeep, they have to sacrifice a creature. Really, really awesome. She just has so much value for the deck. Balefire Dragon. He's a 7-cost 6/6 with flying. Whenever Balefire Dragon deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. So when he attacks, if he hits you for 6, he's hitting all your creatures for 6, and that's usually enough to wipe a board and let all the rest of my guys go through from there on out. Myr Battlesphere, he's in here because when Rakdos hits, he costs 1 mana, and I get 4 Myr tokens when he comes in. So if I hit with Rakdos and I have Perforos down, Rakdos hits you for 6, Perforos is down, I cast my Myr Battlesphere for 1 mana, he comes in for 2 damage, and then each of my 4 Myrs comes in for 2 more damage. So you just took 10, 16 damage. Really, really nice. And that's more or less why he's in. And then he has the ability to pump himself to attack and deal damage. It's all pretty cool. Then we have Bogarden Hellkite. He is a 8-cost 5/5 with flash and flying. You know, everybody knows what he does. He comes in, he deals 5 damage, divided how I choose, and he has flash, and he's huge, and he has cool art. He's just awesome all around. Then we have Artisan of Kozilek for 8 mana, 10/9. When I cast Artisan of Kozilek, I can res a creature, and he has Annihilator 2. And I run Path Raider of Ulamog. He's 11-cost 9/9 with Annihilator 3, and he can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. So he's hard to block. He annihilates 3. I know that when you see this, you'll probably think, oh, why am I running these Eldrazi's and not the actual Ulamog and the actual Kozilek? And that's because when building these guild decks, we really wanted them to be on the sort of an equal power level. So I didn't want to throw those 2 Eldrazi's in, even though I have them. I just felt that it was more fair and to be on the same power level if I put these 2 down. Because even still, when I summon Rakdos on turn 4 and attack on turn 5 for 6, and then I play him for 3 mana, or I play him for 5 mana, the amount of value I'm getting out of that is just insanity. Having an Artisan of Kozilek down on turn 5 is crazy. It's just crazy. Considering he's going to res a creature, and then next turn he's going to swing for 10 and annihilate 2. By turn 5 or 6, they might not have down many permanents. So annihilating 2 could take away 1/3 of their board, or 1/4 of their board. Who knows? But yeah, that more or less sums up my entire Rakdos Lord of Riots EDH deck. So that's what we got here. let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. It's one of our guild battle decks. So as soon as we've gone through all 10 guilds on the deck techs, we're going to start doing the battles and see which deck comes out to be the supreme leader of them all. So thanks a lot. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you think.